would have an alert when you make a decision that's going to impact you for the rest of your life? Madam Toastmaster, fellow communicators, it happened to me right when I left the oil company running a tire store in Chico called Chico Discount Tire and got into the beauty world. I remember going and telling my father, and he says, I'm going to have a son that sells hairspray and lipstick. And I said, Dad, it's professional hair care products. I'd never really been in a sales organization, even though we sold tires. We pumped 100,000 gallons of fuel a month. We sold 1,000 tires a month, and we had a drive-through that did about 40 cars. I ran that operation, started there when I was a junior in high school, busting tires and went through the ranks. They built a new facility in the early 80s that I ran. I remember going to my boss. He came in to town. We went to lunch. I said, John Stites. I said, John, when will I make $50,000 a year? And to my surprise, he put his hands on the table hard. He said, I'll let you know when I get there. And I thought, I need to move on. That next week, I had gone down to a show in San Francisco with a gal that I was dating, and I walked and I said, this is where I want to be. A week later, I had an interview, and at the end of that month, I was working for a small distributor called West Coast Beauty Supply. They said, you need to wear a suit to the sales meetings. That's the only time our manufacturers get to see you. So I walk into the Holiday Inn on Van Ness, and there's this most elaborate room, tables like this with tablecloths, coffee set up, pastry set up. All the senior guys were in the back, all the rock stars were in the front, and the new people were in the middle. And I remember sitting there, and people were being recognized. And I said, why isn't anybody clapping? My first sales meeting, I started. I got the funny looks. We don't do that here. I do. That's amazing. As the months went on, I would clap for everybody, thinking, how do I get my name recognized and called out for something I would achieve? So every month I would go back, and we were a promotional company. They said, you are a promotional salesperson. You have a quota list that you need to do every month. We're not order takers. We don't go in and say 2 bags of Fritos, 3 bags. We're going to give you 12 to 15 items a month. You will hit your quota, or 90 days you will be gone. Well, if you do the math, 70, 80 accounts, you got to sell 12, pretty easy. Plus, we had a really even guarantee. If it doesn't work for you, we'll take it back. You just had to have the courage to show it every time you went into an account. So I started off with small things. They had Cricut brushes. They had capes that we'd put on styling customers inside the salon. I would bring them in, show them, 29 bucks. Quota was 12. I would sell 50. They started calling my name out. The guy in Chico, California, John McCain. I looked, there wasn't much people clapping. But when other people would do, I would clap. Fast forward, I'm a regional manager. I have 8 sales consultants that are on my team in San Luis Obispo, Santa Barbara area. I'd go down once a month, rent a hotel room, have the meetings, and I would clap for every one of them at every sales meeting. And they'd always come up and say, John, I heard you clapping for me. I said, we clap for everybody. We're the loudest clappers in the room. People would laugh. I nicknamed our club Super Region 8. So anytime one of my salespeople got an award, they clapped. I had one person, a senior sales consultant, Sven Markuson, was writing $70,000 a month in sales when everybody else was writing 25. He said, John, why do you really clap? I said, well, because I know if you can do it, I can do it. I clap for you now, but eventually you'll be clapping for me. And haven't you noticed when you clap for people, the person up there getting the applause feels good, but there's always somebody in the crowd like, what are we clapping for? You clap for respect. You clap for admiration. You clap for doing a good job. You clap to tell people they got to get to the front. I have always clapped. When I have left my business that I sold, when I got my divorce, I started working for other companies. One thing about salespeople, the #1 characteristic you should have is that you're super competitive. The money that you earn, because selling is one of the highest paid professions, is the measuring stick. I don't go to work to see if I can make money. Money comes to me whether I do my job properly. It's the measuring stick. But your competitiveness, I always say this, I'm not greedy, but I'm super competitive in the world of sales. When I went to La Mesa, they said, what do you think you're going to do? And I said, within 2 years, I'll be your top 3 or 4 salespeople. Really, what I should have said, I'll be number 1 at the store. Last year, I was finished 8th in the company out of 330, and I was 3rd in the store. The 2 guys that beat me have been with the company for 25 and 26 years. I clap for them. At La Mesa, we don't clap for anybody. I clap. I've been told that all the time, and I continue to clap. Why wouldn't you clap for somebody else? Why wouldn't you? I never have figured that out. The one thing I think clapping does, especially for a salesperson, I'm going to get in that guy's head when he doesn't clap for the other person who's being successful. If you feel that clapping for the other person because they beat you, then you need to work harder. It's a silent message in the world of selling that somebody did a better job than you, that I will beat you every month, that I will outsell your quotas. I will beat you, and then if you beat me, I will clap for you too. It's one of those things that I think what we don't do is recognize. Before I became a regional manager, and before I became the California field sales manager, the youngest in the company's history, I watched Pete Record give an award. It was a $20,000 plaque. It was your first award. As the company grew, I started with 35. When I left, there were 235. We were in part of California, then we were in 11 western states. We were the dominant force. You walked into that meeting, everybody wore $1,000 suits back then. Everybody was wearing Ballets of Ferragamo's. All the sales guys were wearing Rolexes. It was the midst of the 80s, and we were the rock stars. So when somebody first came in and achieved their $20,000 plaque, at that time, I was writing $75,000, $80,000 a month. Pete would say, you know you made a commitment, and you're here for a reason when you get your first $20,000 plaque. They would say, we'd like to invite Coleman Jones up to the front, and everybody would stand up and clap for that person. A little $35 plaque. The person would fight back the tears because they knew that they were getting awarded and recognized for the entry-level performance, but their expectation was soon to be where everybody else was, $75,000. There were 5 guys that sat in the front row, and I was one of them. We could put $125,000 worth of beauty supply products in one day on the street. Nobody did it what we did. So I always remember the importance of clapping for somebody, recognizing at every stage of their career where they were by a simple gesture, 15 seconds. So in closing, go back to your work, go back to your family reunions, and when somebody tells a great story, be the first one who puts their hands together and say, great job, we're so proud of you. Madam President.